Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1082 of our daily content grind, and a quick little announcement before we get going. I've only got a few more days before the first of the month, which means I've only got a few more days to accept questions for the next Q&A video. As usual, you can leave them on the video we posted at the beginning of the month. You can ask me whatever you want, as long as it's within terms of service, of course. But remember, it's not just Transformers, Kamen Rider, whatever. You can literally just ask me anything you want, as long as it's, a family-friendly question. So, please, if you haven't gotten anything in for the month, your time is rapidly approaching. This is your one update. All right, we have this brand new thing from Takara, which is kind of an extension of their T-Spark 40th Anniversary Transformer stuff. And this is Synergen X, which is apparently this amalgamation of different lines crossing over. It's their version of collaborative series, where Hasbro just gets these random 80s properties usually to cross over with a Transformer. Now Takara is doing it, and it's in the same vibe of going after these companies that have anniversaries on the same year as Transformers. Makes sense. And one of the dream crossovers we got is Godzilla. We are getting Godzilla-branded Transformer toys. And this is something I never thought was possible, because I thought Bandai had a stranglehold on all of the on Godzilla toys in general. But of course, we have we got like Hiya toys that are doing stuff, but that's like a different universe. Like, this is like original, like, Heisei era Godzilla stuff, So this is kind of shocking to me. And I think this got so many people excited. And then we got to see what we were getting. And man, I have never seen the excitement for a toy crash as fast as this did. So let's go over it. Let's actually look into this, and we will pick this apart piece by piece, as I want to do. So to start off with, let's begin with the Optimus Prime, who is cosplaying as Kiryu. If you're unaware of who Kiryu is, it is a Heisei version of Mechagodzilla with a bit of a different origin. It's built from the remains of a previous Godzilla, like the original one from the Showa era, but ignoring all the movies where Godzilla was a good guy. It's weird. It's a weird little bit of continuity. Point being, yeah, Optimus Prime is basically cosplaying Kiryu here. I'm going to assume that they went with this version of the mold for a few reasons. Number one, Kiryu has these giant blue cannons hanging over his shoulder. The Laser Optimus mold does kind of allow us to have that, so it kind of gets that visual in there. The helmet is a lot spikier than a lot of Optimus Primes, so that also kind of plays into the overall look. You might ask yourself, well, wait, Mechagodzilla, why is Optimus Prime Mechagodzilla? Isn't Godzilla the main character? Yes, but this is Heisei era Godzilla, where Godzilla was a bad guy. And Kiryu was a Mechagodzilla designed to protect Tokyo from Godzilla. So Optimus is actually scanned the good guy for this one. We did get a look at the full visual of the vehicle mode. It's potato quality, but we don't have the full images here. So we can see the vehicle mode. There is a reason for the green tanker. I can't remember it offhand, but it is a color associated here. The blue is coming from the cannon pack that Kiryu has. In fact, now I can actually just kind of show you. There's Kiryu. So now you see where the blue comes from, and you can actually see where we're getting the color schemes, like the translucent yellows coming from the eyes, etc., etc. And yeah, this is kind of the inspiration. Now, if we look back at that Optimus Prime, even knowing where it's getting its designs from, let's just be honest, this is not an interesting looking, this is a boring looking Optimus Prime. I do know a few people who like it, who actually do like the look of it, and that's perfectly fine if you do. For me, though, it's just a flat gray Optimus Prime, and I feel like a huge tell of just how flimsy the resemblance is here comes from the fact that they actually have a Godzilla logo tampographed on his chest. Like, this is so vague. And this is so unrecognizable. Like, if you looked at this, if you just put this down in front of a Godzilla collector, if it didn't have, like, the markings on the chest, you just go, like, who is Prime supposed to be? I don't think any of them would guess Mechagodzilla. You know? I don't think anyone would actually guess that. It's that logo that informs it, which kind of gives me the look of, like, the smock costumes from the 80s. Where the resemblance was so pale that, like, all you actually had to just print the character and the logo, the franchise, directly on this sheet of plastic that you'd make a kid wear. God, these were pathetic. And these were all over the place because they were dirt cheap. They were dirt cheap costumes. You didn't look anything like the character you were supposed to be, but hey, it got you candy, so you wore it. You know, your parents only had to pay $4 for it, so you wore it. But it's that low of a resemblance that's just frustrating to me, and it's just dull. You know, it's just a dull looking repaint. What it reminded me of is actually how we last saw Optimus Prime in the original G1 cartoon. That silver color scheme when he was coated with metal to protect himself from the hate plague. I always kind of wonder, like, for as often as we get things like Golden Lagoon, you know, colored Transformers and all gold decos, why don't I have an all-silver deco of Optimus Prime to kind of replicate this scene? Well, we kind of answered that with Kiryu. It looks really dull, you know? It's a frustrating thing, you know? It's weird. It's very weird. Now, this kind of homage, this kind of thing, is not unfamiliar to Transformer fans. It's not. In fact, Optimus Prime has done this more than once. Who remembers the Evangelion Optimus Prime, for instance? Now, on one hand, it's not a fair comparison, and I will admit it's not a fair comparison because Eva Unit 1's color scheme is so unique and iconic that, yeah, there's no way of mistaking who this is supposed to be. The purple and the bright green, and then the translucent orange. Yeah, like, you know it's Evangelion when you take a look at it, right? So, like, you don't need the branding on there. You don't need to have, like, the Eva Unit logos all over the place. It just kind of looks the part, you know, and that's all it really had to do. We, in America, saw this actually at retail shelves, because Takara also did these Street Fighter Transformers way back when, and there was a reissue of these for the American audience once collaborative was a thing here in America. These are super bizarre. They are super, super bizarre repaints. Now, extensive repaints, I will give it that. These are very extensive for the sake of actually producing these characters as accurately as possible, given the fact that none of them were remolded for the job. So, they're funny. I will give them that. But, you know, like, Street Fighter and Evangelion, as popular as they are, they do not carry the gravitas that Godzilla does. So your expectation is so skyrocketed high. And then just to find out, oh, it's just a laser Optimus Prime repaint. And to be fair, in Japan, they have not seen that mold nearly as often as we have here in the US. But still, it's pale, it's flimsy. It's disappointing. Now, originally, I thought this would be like a licensing thing where, like, it's inaccurate because, you know, like Bandai has the master license. They can license like the logos, but they can't license the actual imagery of the characters. And what made me think that was looking at the other offering that we have so far, and that is Megatron. Megatron type Godzilla, I wish. Let's get this out of the way because a lot of people made this accusation without doing any kind of research first. The head is not Sludge. It's not Sludge's head. I've looked at the two pictures side by side. There is a crest on the front of both of them, but the crest is not sculpted the same, and the rest of the head is completely different. So let's get that out of the way right now. No, they didn't just swap Sludge's head on and switch and change his horns. It's an entirely new Megatron head. I don't know why this Megatron head has the little fin horns on the side. That is weird. I don't get that, but it's whatever. Just to point out here, No, it's not Sludge's head. That said, it's still not exactly an impressive thing. So, first, like, deco-wise, it's fine. You know, it looks like Megatron in black. Okay, whatever. And I'm sure they jumped at any opportunity to put a Grimlock toy with a Megatron or Optimus head, so that's perfectly well and good. I made the comment, like, there was a attempt at this in the past. I forgot to pull up the picture for the video, but I posted it on Twitter. Fall of Cybertron's toy line in Generations actually was about to do this. There was a Beast Megatron head sculpted into that mold, and the reuse of that toy was going to be what we assumed to be a Transmetal Megatron. It never happened, but a gold prototype does exist that shows that head. So it's kind of ironic that all these years later, a Grimlock toy does finally get a Megatron head. Somehow, it found a way. Now, the funny thing about this particular design to me is that, frankly, we are not unfamiliar to this kind of treatment, you know? One of the most famous knockoffs in Transformers, one of the most valuable Transformer knockoffs you will find, is this Grimlock that has been retooled to better resemble a kaiju. We've called it Godzilla Grimlock in the past, but let's be honest, it really doesn't look the part. It's got the dorsal fins, but it doesn't, you know, but Godzilla doesn't have, like, that shape to the top of his head. He doesn't have the big well, he kind of has the fangs. Depends on the Godzilla. Doesn't have the horn, though. That's completely unique to this one. But this one is always very well known. Like, as far as, like, Godzilla Transformer, this was as close as we got, and a lot of people are aware of this one. Lesser known, but also funny, this knockoff of Grimlock also exists. And they tried a lot more here. You can tell they tried a lot harder. There's just straight up Godzilla parts in here, like the tail. The tail looks to be completely removable in this one. Well, maybe not removable, but like that seems like it's going to hang way too low to work for the legs. And I love the artwork. I love the artwork is literally like Photoshop before Photoshop existed, of just Mecha Godzilla and normal Godzilla parts. And this like weird Frankenstein cyborg thing he's got going on. This is actually much closer. It just kind of does give off the vibe of a cybernetic Godzilla. So we're not terribly unfamiliar with this. Now, of course, you're free to like the deco, but as a Godzilla, this is a really disappointing deco. To the point where I almost would have preferred if they had done a Showa era Godzilla instead. Because that one could have been done in like a dark green, and I think it would have been more recognizable, but this just looks like a black Grimlock. There's nothing informing you that this is Godzilla in any way, shape, or form. And it's so weird to get this out of Takara, who has gone to great lengths in the past to retool and completely re-engineer figures specifically to get them more accurate. The Ken figure I showed you is based on a Hot Rod toy that Takara retooled completely so that the engine could fold away in robot mode, something the Hasbro version couldn't do, just because it was a little bit more screen accurate. That's the kind of effort I expect out of Takara. And then there's this. I don't know what it is, if this was just the best they could do. Like, I mean, we are coming up short. Like, if they got the license pretty late, then, okay, maybe they didn't have the time to do this. Like, to release it as a 40th anniversary Transformers, 70th anniversary Godzilla, it'd have to come out this year. So maybe they were just rushed for time and close as they could come. But it's still really disappointing. That the Dino mode needs a new head. It needs the fins. It needs thicker arms. Like, it just doesn't strike Godzilla. There's going to be an upgrade company. There's going to be an upgrade set that's just going to go ham on this, and everyone's going to go nuts for it. It's such a letdown. It sucks. It flat out sucks. I saw someone suggest that maybe they should have done the Beast Wars Megatron mold instead. Well, one, I think they would have clashed with the Optimus Prime. Well, the suggestion was this should have been Optimus. This should have been Mechagodzilla, which would have actually been closer. But then think of this. The Beast mode would basically just be Grimlock. It would just look like Grimlock. Like, I mean, maybe even like a flatter Grimlock, because you wouldn't have any gold on him. So, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. But someone also suggested maybe the Beast Wars Megatron, but like, that's designed after a horizontal T-Rex, whereas Godzilla's designed after a vertical one, because that's what we thought T-Rexes looked like back then. So you'd have to do a lot of remolding, make sure it could stand that way, that the head angled that way. The head had to be way smaller for Godzilla to make it look like a kaiju. You'd have to figure out, what else? You have to figure out the thicker arms on this figure, which would be a lot, might be a little bit harder because the ball joints on this one are a lot smaller, so that's an extra bit of retooling. Yeah, I don't think it's practical. Like, ultimately, I don't think it would have been a practical choice here. Also, the tail is way too small in this one. You'd have to retool that to be a lot longer, and then it'd have to bend in order to fit in the robot mode, which would make this... You'd have to bend in the beast mode, rather, to make it stand correctly. And then it'd look super awkward as a robot mode arm. You get my point. I don't agree with that. I also don't agree with the idea that it should, that it should have been Trypticon, right? So we've seen Grimlock in those colors before, so we know the toy looks good in the dark colors. But I heard people going like, what if it was Trypticon? Like, why didn't they make that into Godzilla? And like, number one, yeah, that would look a lot better. That'd look a lot closer. But also, that would never happen. That would never happen. So, even if you just only did one piece, even if you only did the Godzilla, and you didn't do like a Kiryu or a Mechagodzilla or anything, you didn't do a second character to face off against it. One, you're not going to want a Godzilla that just transforms into a base, a play set. You're not going to do that. No one's going to want that. No, you want a Godzilla that turns into a robot, right? Also, you're never going to get a collaborative Titan figure. You're just not. Like, for instance, like this. You do this as Godzilla. You're talking about $200 minimum in order to make a Titan class figure. You're only going to release it in Japan, so the cost is going to be even higher for this figure. It's not even an import cost. The toys are just more expensive in Japan is all. You're talking about the licensing fee, and then you're talking about the price increase from how low the production run on this is going to be. You're looking at what would have been a $400 figure. And then and then even higher if you're going to do something to match it, like a Kiryu to this, to this Godzilla. Not going to happen. I think the most disappointing thing about all of this is that this seems like such a lazy effort by Takara, and it feels like this is it. They did an Optimus and a Megatron, a Grimlock, a Godzilla and a Mechagodzilla, and that really just feels like a pair, right? Like, they don't need to go any further than that, and I don't feel like the license is going to extend farther than 2 releases. And that really is upsetting because it just brings to mind so many things we could do if this was just a proper crossover line. In a world where we got that Grimlock retooled to actually resemble Godzilla, and it's the toy everybody's always wanted. Look at everything else we get, Where's Anguirus? I could see a slag, a slug, a Studio Series slug, being retooled into Anguirus pretty easily. Maybe I have to figure out how to rework the head, but for the most part, like, yeah, you could 1-to-1 that. Like, I would accept that kind of retooling. Swoopus Rodan is like the most obvious thing you could possibly do here. And again, like, yeah, like that's perfectly viable. We could have a monsterverse of Transformers, and it just doesn't feel like we're going to get it. The difficult thing to that is that a lot of Godzilla's monsters are just vertical, kind of like kaijus. Then they all have distinct looks. Like, I like Gigan, the big scythe chicken that he is, but I will admit, he would probably transform exactly like Godzilla because, he's got that G1 Grimlock vertical thing to him. And a lot of the monsters that Godzilla fights are like that, because most of them had to be a guy in a rubber suit. So they all kind of stand the same way. One of the ones I would love to get, and it is actually on the table if this was a whole thing, Ghidorah, King Ghidorah. If you could figure out how to get those extra 2 heads on a Transmetal 2 Megatron body, this is absolutely what you would do. Right? You would absolutely get this figure and everyone would go nuts and everyone would love it. And it'd be the greatest toy ever, right? Yeah, that's not in the books. That doesn't seem to be what's happening. Here's one that's easy. Where's my boy? Where's Jet Jaguar? He could just transform into something. He doesn't even need to be a kaiju. Like, he just needs to take this as his robot mode and turn into something, and I would be thrilled. You know the kicker? The real kicker here, and this is going to stick in your craw. There's someone out there that's going to see this idea and go, that is never not going to bother me now. And they will rue the fact that they ever made it to the end of this video to find this. Biolante might have been the only shot we would get at a Botanica toy. Might be the only way. Sorry, not happening. Won't happen. This has so much potential. And it just feels like Takara just dropped the ball so hard. And it's so disappointing. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe these sell well enough that they go, okay, we'll let you continue this. We'll give you like a chance to do it more properly. I don't foresee that happening. I think this is just going to be a special one-off piece, and we're not going to see the likes of it again, which is going to be very, very disappointing. But is what it is, I guess. So that's me airing my grievances. This crossover sucks. It's going to be very expensive to get these. I'm not paying it. I don't think anyone should pay it. This is the kind of like weak crossover that really should have been done better. This is like a vote with your wallet. We want this to be better. But also, we might not get better unless we buy it. So don't you love when that happens? But regardless, I know people are going to love it. I already know people who are going to buy it. Please let me know in the comments below if you are in or out. Let me know if this is a thumbs up, thumbs down crossover thing. If you are going to be paying for it, Godzilla in name only Megatron. I'm just curious. But that's it for me today. Thank you for letting me air some frustration. And thank you for watching. I will see you next time.